In Activity 8.1, you're going to build on what you started learning in Unit 7. So you're going to end up creating a spreadsheet that looks something like this. You're going to start by just entering the data, and after entering it, it'll look like this. The first thing you'll notice is that in row 3, your column headings are now wrapped. So like hourly rate, hours worked, federal tax are shown as wrapped text or one word below the other, which is new. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. If I come to cell B3 where I have hourly rate, first way to do it is as you're typing, obviously I can't just hit enter. If I hit enter, it just moves down to the next cell, which is not what we want. We want to move rate down below hourly. So instead of just hitting enter, I need to hold the Alt key. So if I hold Alt and then hit enter, it actually moves it down to a new line. Now it's kind of weird. It looks like it got rid of hourly. It didn't. It's just showing one line at a time. If I come up here and scroll up, here's hourly, here's rate. When I hit enter, it'll show both within the cell. So that's one way to do it. The other way, I'm going to undo this. If you already have all of them typed, like I do here, what I can do is just highlight all the cells where I'd want wrap text, and there's a wrap text feature up here in the alignment group on the home tab, and it's this icon right here. This is wrap text. If I select wrap text, you can see that hourly rate and hours worked both wrapped because the columns weren't wide enough. And in the picture, you'll see that federal tax also is wrapped. The reason it's not here is because my column's wide enough. If I adjust my column width, there we go. Federal tax is now wrapped. So that's the first thing that's new. Now we need to insert our formulas, and in the previous unit you learned how to do auto sum and those types of formulas, but here we're going to actually do manual formulas where we need to type in the formula. So the first thing you need to know anytime you type in a formula is you need to insert an equal sign into the cell. So I do equals and then I put the formula. If I don't do the equals, Excel just thinks that it's a regular text and it won't actually do any calculating. Putting the equals in tells Excel calculate whatever comes next. So to figure out gross pay is figured out by multiplying the number of hours worked times the hourly rate. So for Noah, he worked 30 hours at $11.20, so I need to multiply those two together. What I don't want to do is retype all my numbers, so I'm not going to do 11.2 times 30. That wouldn't make sense. I already have the numbers typed over here. So what I'm going to do is use a cell reference. So I'm going to do 11.2. Now I could type in the B4, or I could just click on it and notice how it puts it into the formula. So I'm going to do B4 times, which is the asterisk key, times the hours worked, which is in cell C4. So I want B4 times C4. I hit enter, and there's how much he made, his gross pay, which is what he would make prior to taxes being taken out. So now let's jump over to his net pay. Net pay is figured out by taking his gross pay minus the taxes. So what I want to do for this is do equals his gross pay, which was in cell D4, minus his federal taxes, which is in cell E4, minus his state taxes, which are in cell F4. And so there's the formula to calculate his net pay. And then I hit enter, and there's his net pay. And finally, we want the percentage of taxes. The percentage of taxes would be figured out by taking the federal tax and adding the state tax together, and then dividing by the amount that he actually made. So to do that, in Excel, order of operations are important. If I do addition prior to the division, it's going to jump ahead and do division first because that's what order of operations state to do. So if I want to add first, I need to throw in the parentheses. So I'm going to put in parentheses, and then his federal taxes. Oops, I did not put my equals. I said earlier, make sure you put your equals. I didn't. There we go. Equals, parentheses, federal taxes plus state taxes divided by, and then I'm going to divide by the amount that he, actually not the amount that he made, but actually I'm going to divide by the gross pay, so that would be in D4. So that's how I'm going to figure out the percentage of taxes. So equals E4 plus F4 divided by D4. The parentheses are important here to make sure we do the addition first. And 0.21, so 21% was taken out taxes. Now for the rest of the people, I don't want to have to retype all those formulas. So this makes use of what you learned in the last activity of Unit 7, and that's the fill handle. So I'm going to come over here to the formula that's in D4, grab a hold of that fill handle, and fill that formula down for everyone else. And I'm going to do the same thing for these two, and I'm just going to do this both of them at the same time since they're side by side. So I highlight both cells, grab that fill handle, And now I've inserted that formula for all the people, all the employees. All right, now we need to come down here and find my totals. So totals would just be adding. Now not every cell is going to need totals. If you come back and look at the picture, actually I guess the only one that's not showing the totals here is the hourly rate. So I'm just going to start here in C12. I'm going to highlight all of these cells, and if you remember from the earlier video, a really easy way to do the sum for all of them at the same time, highlight the empty cells below each column, hit auto sum, there's my totals. Now average, highest, lowest, not quite as easy. I'm going to have to do those individually, then use the fill handle. So for the average, let's see, do we need average for these? Yes, I'm going to do average for all of them. So I'm going to come back here to B13, click average. Now make sure you're only finding the average of the right cells. I want to average for each person. I don't want this empty cell, so I'm going to highlight just the correct cells, B4 to B11. To find the highest, that is the max function, so I'm going to select max. Once again, highlight the correct cells. I want the highest hourly rate among all these people, so I'm going to highlight B4 to B11 again. And then finally I want to see who's making the lowest, so I'm going to do min and highlight B4 to B11. And there we go. Now, since the formula is going to be the same for all of these, for the hours worked, gross pay, all of that, what I can do is highlight these three and then use those exact same formulas all the way across. I'm going to use the fill handle and fill all the way across. And now I have the average, highest, and lowest for every single column. So that is pretty much all of the new stuff. The rest of this video is just going to be going through doing the formatting. So if you're pretty comfortable with formatting, you can stop the video at this point. But for those who may not be comfortable with the formatting, I'll go ahead and complete this assignment in this video. So the next step is to start formatting. I need to merge everything for my title. So I'm going to merge A1 to H1. So merge and center. There we go. And merge and center. So I've merged those. Then it says to increase the font size in row 1 to 16 and increase the font size of row 2 to 14. So I'm going to make my titles a little bit bigger. The next step says to highlight the merged cells in rows A1 or rows 1 and 2 and set the background color to green, accent 6, lighter 60%. So I'm highlighting both of these at the same time. I'm going to go to my, so I could go up to my cell styles to do the background color, but this actually doesn't say use 60% accent, whatever. It actually says to do green accent 6. So that's talking about using the fill bucket, just like we did in Word with the paragraph background colors. I'm going to go to green accent 6, lighter 60%. So that is this one. Okay, then the next step says to center and bold the column headings in row 3. So I'm going to highlight everything in column 3, go to center and bold. The next step says to, let's see, actually I guess the next steps are doing the totals, which I already jumped ahead and did all this. So the next steps are finding these totals, find the average, sum, lowest. So let's see, I can skip ahead now to 16, it looks like, yeah, 16. No, I already did that. Format the totals row using the total style. So I'm down on 17 now. So totals row should be the total style. So I go to cell styles, total. Let's see, 18, use the accounting style in, okay, so I'm going to do the accounting style for the first row. And it's not going to be all of these numbers like it is sometimes, because if I look across here, obviously taxes should not be accounting, or that should be a percentage. Hours worked should not be accounting because that's not a dollar amount, that's just a regular number. So I need to be careful here which ones I actually select. I'm actually just selecting from D4 to G4. These are the ones that should be the accounting style. And then I'm going to jump down to my totals and do the same thing in the totals row. And obviously E4 or E is a little bit too narrow to show it. There we go. Alright, and then I want to use comma style for C4 through C12. So C4 through C12 says to use comma style for the hours worked. But when I do comma style, it's going to put in a bunch of decimals, and that doesn't make sense for hours worked unless somebody worked maybe like 30.5 hours or something, but in this case there are no decimals. So then I'm going to come up here and decrease my decimal places to 0. So what was the point of doing comma style? Well, what it did is it just shifted everything over a little bit to kind of match the other accounting style. That's really the only reason we did that. Let's see, then use the comma style for D5 through G12. So D5 through G12. Actually, it's just G11, not G12. Should be comma style. There we go. Then it says to use percents for column H. So I'm going to highlight everything in column H all the way down through and change that to percent. And after doing that, it says to increase the decimal places to show 1 decimal place. By default, when you change things to percent, it always shows 0 decimal places. So I need to increase this by 1 to show 1 decimal place. And then finally, let's see, we want to go down and change the dollar amounts in the average, min, and max rows to currency style. So it's just the dollar amounts, not the hours worked or the hourly rate, although I guess hourly rate actually should be a dollar amount. So this should be currency here. Currency. And then let's see, gross pay all the way through net pay would all be currency as well. There we go. And actually I did miss one. Somehow I missed in the directions. Since hourly rate is a dollar amount, that should be accounting, and these should all be decimal or the comma. I'm not sure I missed those. There we go. So now our spreadsheet should look similar to the one pictured down here. The last part of the directions just say to adjust column widths as necessary, just to make sure nothing's being cut off. I don't see anything being cut off in mine, so I am now done with this project.